Hey dudes, new year, same me. It's Lerald, and in our last video of 2024, I said I didn't know if the clear on my Fulminating Concoction Pathfinder could get much better, but maybe. I don't know that the clear can really get much better, but you know, hey, maybe. See, there, I said it. Well, guess what? It's better. A lot better. So this is going to expand on that particular clearing interaction that I've been using and how I've developed it over the last couple of days. You can add this clear into not just a concoction build, but pretty much any build that uses a martial weapon and deals a decent amount of either cold or lightning damage. This means that mercenaries, monks, and rangers are all in good shape here. Sorceresses don't really need any help with clearing, at least while Spark is as strong as it currently is. And as for witches and warriors, I don't know. To be honest, they kind of seem like they're not doing too great for other reasons, but you know, you may be able to make some of this tech work as a warrior. So what we're doing is we are combining Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice and Cast on Shock with Voltaic Mark to get large explosions of shocks and freezes, and these are all kind of propagating out through packs of enemies and clearing out everything, all with one single attack. Now, the way that we're able to make this work, because I am playing a lightning build, I really don't have the ability to freeze enemies. I'm using Pulsar Keln, and then just getting some cold damage, pretty much just from my quiver. I'm getting a decent amount of cold damage. I'm certainly not getting it from my bow. I'm using a Widow Hail. This thing has like 10 DPS on it. But I'm getting enough flat cold damage to chill enemies between my gloves and my quiver. And just by simply chilling them and wearing Pulsar Keln, they count as though they're frozen when they die, and that causes them to then explode. Now, Herald of Ice is not able to freeze, Herald of Thunder is not able to shock, but they are able to do the opposite. Herald of Thunder is able to freeze, Herald of Ice is able to shock. So you're able to kind of make this work with any kind of build, a cold damage build or a lightning damage build, pretty easily by taking something like Cold Infusion and putting it on Herald of Thunder. Kind of counterintuitive, but it basically turns all of that like lightning damage that you would get out of Herald of Thunder, converts a lot of it into cold, and you're able to do the exact opposite with a cold build. You would take Lightning Infusion and put it onto Herald of Ice, and now it's going to do a lot of lightning damage, and then it will be capable of shocking, and that is how everything is able to ripple out and chain outward and kill enemies really easily. Now, this all works a lot better if you are playing a more conventional build like Lightning Arrow or Ice Shot, something that has a big, hard-hitting weapon, because Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice do scale off of your weapon damage. I'm still making it work just simply because I'm getting enough flat damage and flat damage scaling out of my quiver from all of the massive quiver effect that I have, that I'm doing enough to shock. I mean, shock is happening pretty easily because I am playing a lightning build, but I'm doing enough to chill. That's kind of making things work. If you were playing the opposite way around, if I were doing the opposite, if I were playing a cold build and trying to get shocked, that would be a little bit more difficult. And that was kind of where I would really need to have the Lightning Infusion on Herald of Ice, converting a lot of that cold damage into lightning, and then also juicing it with things like Conduction on the Herald of Ice to really increase the shock chance, and maybe even just taking some shock chance or chance to inflict elemental ailments throughout the tree, or maybe on jewels as well. Now, there is also a really valuable amulet anoint that you can get, Doomsayer. I think this is relatively cheap. I believe it costs, a Paranoia, a Guilt, and a Disgust. So I think this isn't like, kind of going off memory here, but I think this is like in the 20 Exalt range. So not terribly expensive. And it gives you 30% increased damage and AoE on your Herald skills, which helps with the shocking and chilling, also helps with them hitting a lot more guys and doing a lot more damage. Now, as I said, you need both freeze and shock on enemies for this whole thing to work. Shock is easy, freeze is not. Chilling is a lot easier than freezing. You only need a small amount of cold damage, and that's where Pulsar Keln kind of comes in. It's pretty common, it's pretty cheap. I think it's a 1 Exalt unique, although let's double check. Oh, maybe it's up to a Divine now because of, I don't know, not me, probably Mathel or something. We get our chill to effectively function as a freeze for the purposes of shattering enemies, which enables all of the Herald of Ice pops that we get. Now, this is the combo that I was using in the previous video, and it works okay, but there is more we can do, and that's really where the Cast on Shock comes into play. The two Heralds are good, like I said. They're good, but they have a limited amount of range even with Doomsayer, and I really needed something to supercharge that, and I have found it with Cast on Shock Voltaic Mark. Now, you can use Cast on Freeze if you are playing a cold build. You can also use Freezing Mark, although comparing Voltaic Mark and Freezing Mark, I do generally think that Voltaic Mark is the better of the two. And just to kind of look at the way that the two work, you know, they're both a mark. You put them on one target, it then causes chance, basically causes hits to have a higher chance to apply the corresponding ailment, right? But then they also have a Nova afterward, and this Nova has flat damage scaling. It's just based on the gem level. It's not based on your weapon damage at all. It also has a much higher chance to shock or freeze, but you'll note that it's 100% more freeze buildup for Freezing Mark and 200% more chance to shock for Voltaic. So it is definitely stronger on Voltaic Mark for like getting those shocks applied, which works better if you're playing a lightning build, but I think also kind of works better to help with your limited lightning damage if you're playing a cold build. So I actually think Voltaic Mark is the better of the two, but you know, you can play around with either of them and see. You're definitely going to get more cold damage out of Freezing Mark if you're playing a cold build, because even though you're not able to scale the damage with your weapon damage or flat damage or anything, your increased cold damage passives throughout the tree will scale Freezing Mark up. The point is that both Mark skills ultimately are very similar. I just think Voltaic Mark is a little bit better, kind of fixes some of the problems a little better. They basically have the exact same amount of flat added damage. The range on Voltaic Mark is larger, but the average is the same. They have the same radius. I think Voltaic Mark has 8% chance to crit and Freezing Mark is 12, so that's maybe the one advantage of Freezing Mark over Voltaic. But either way, they both work very similarly. Now, obviously, to fix all of this, we kind of have some issues here. We have Spirit that we have to fix. You know, this is two Heralds, which cost 30 Spirit each, and then a cast on Shock or Freeze, which costs 60 Spirit each. So that's 120 right there. Your base is 100. Obviously, you're not going to be able to use anything else, you know, even if you do get 20 Spirit. So there are several spots where you can get Spirit. The first one is your Amulet. You can get up to 50 there. And surprisingly, given how powerful auras are, I have found that Spirit Amulets do seem kind of underpriced. I don't know why, but like I was able to get some pretty good Spirit Amulets that were just not very expensive. Even ones that had like 30 or 40 Spirit and like +2 projectile gem levels were still only like 1 Divine. They're just kind of underpriced for how good they are. You could also get 60 Spirit, up to, I think it's 61 Spirit actually, on your body armor. I have a 60 Spirit body armor so that I'm able to run Grim Feast and Wind Dancer and Alchemist Boon, because I have to do that because I'm playing a concoction build, but also I'm running Wind Dancer and Grim Feast because I just really don't like dying, so really kind of playing overly cautious and really running a lot of auras, but I'm very happy with the setup as it currently stands. Now, there is kind of 2 other ways you can get some more Spirit here, and they're a little expensive. You can buy Soul Cores of Azkapa. This is kind of the big, expensive Soul Core that comes from the Trial of Chaos. At the present moment, they're costing like 2 2/3 Divines each. They're pretty expensive. They have the bonus of giving rarity if they're socketed into armor. People are using this for juicing, getting like 700-800% rarity or whatever with their insane expensive setups. You know, you can get 15 Spirit per socket that you put into your weapon, so you can get 30 Spirit pretty easily on a weapon. And I say pretty easily, but really I mean like 5 Divines. So super not cheap, but definitely something you can do. I think a much cheaper version here is just simply to take these 3 points over here in this Herald section around Coming Calamity, and I'll just show that off. I'll go over to Doriani and spec out of 3 useful points and show that off, that by running 2 Heralds, this will give you 10 Spirit back. If I put the points in correctly, you get 10 Spirit back. So in my current situation, not really anything that's like fixing anything for me. Definitely not the most efficient allocation of passive points, but something you can do in a jam if you want to kind of make things work. It'll definitely work. And if you're trying to do some sort of Tri-Herald thing, although I have looked at Herald of Ash a bit, I don't have the strength to run it. It doesn't really seem like it synergizes well at all. It does more of like a overkill, turns into ignite on nearby enemies kind of thing. Doesn't really seem like it would work with any of this setup at all for getting big AoE pops, but you know, maybe there's some sort of tech there that I haven't thought about. And then if you were to combine all 3 Heralds, you would get like 15 Spirit back. Maybe that could be something, maybe. So that covers Spirit. And the thing about the Cast on Shock setup is, while we are getting instantly triggered spell casts, they're not free. So we do have to do something to solve mana. So if you're playing something that involves like a big physical damage weapon, Lightning Arrow or something like that, Mana Leech may be able to cover you. It may not. Mana Leech is kind of the worst option, but it is certainly the most like obvious. Your next option is just to run Inspiration support. This will make it so that your cost of Voltaic Mark or Freezing Mark is 40% reduced. That's okay. You know, I think for a lot of situations, instead of running Inspiration, you can just kind of run a lower level spell gem. But in this particular situation, I don't want to run a lower level mark gem because the damage of the mark is entirely based on the spell, on the skill level itself. So I really don't want to lower the level to reduce the cost. That's something you could maybe play around with, but I don't want to do that. So I've just gone with Inspiration, 40% less cost. It's working out okay. And then I'm also just occasionally hitting my Mana Flask if I really feel like I need to. It's not really the end of the world. I am generating a lot of flash charges. Then the third option, and definitely the best one, the one that I am going to transition into eventually, is just simply getting mana on kill. You can get that from Sapphires. I thought I had one of those lying around, although as I've looked around, I don't see it. Nope, here it's not here. Yeah, I have no idea. So you can get those on Sapphires, and then there are several other spots where you can get mana on kill on gear. Yeah, mana on kill. It is only available as a blue jewel mod for whatever reason, but it can also be gotten as like a flat amount on quivers, which 27 mana per enemy kill, that's pretty good. You can also be gotten on bows, like 40 something mana, and then, you know, those are pretty high value items. You kind of don't want to be wasting stat spots on like your quiver and bow suffixes, but on rings, not as valuable. You can get flat mana per enemy kill, and you can get like 27, pretty good. And then the same goes for gloves. You can get up to 45 on gloves. I think those are definitely more affordable spots. Your gloves and your rings are definitely more affordable spots to kind of give up a suffix in order to not have to worry about mana sustain at all. And yeah, that's kind of it. So let's wrap things up. This tech is super duper good. It feels really amazing. The ability to get all of these different interactions chaining off of just a single cast is immensely satisfying. It's not going to get old to me at any point. I've updated the max roll planner link for my Lightning Concoction Pathfinder to match the setup I'm currently using as well, and it's exactly what you're seeing on the screen now. I don't really have a lot else to say. I hope you had a good New Year. I was watching 28 Days Later before I started putting this video together. I got hyped over the 28 Years Later trailer, and 28 Days Later really holds up. All right, so that's like a 3-for-1 combo of advice on clearing, a build update, and a 20-year-old movie review. So that's probably worth a like and subscribe, just for the value alone. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.